excited to be cooking with you today. I will be sharing with you one of my favorite vegan taco recipes, Carne Asada tofu. This recipe is meant to mimic the traditional flavor of carne asada, but with a plant-based, protein-packed, and nutritionally packed filling tofu. We're going to be using clean ingredients that are minimally processed so that you can feel good about what you're eating, which is why I will even be sharing with you how to make your own corn tortillas from scratch. Here are our ingredients. For the tortillas, we're going to need 1.5 cups of hot water and 2 cups of masa harina. For our salsa verde, we're going to need 4 tomatillos, about 1/2 cup of fresh cilantro, 1/4 of a white onion, the juice of 1 lime, 2 serrano peppers, and about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. For our garnish, we're going to be chopping some fresh cilantro, about 1/4 of a white onion, and we're just going to need some lime juice, whatever your preference is. For our carne asada tofu, we will need 1 box of firm tofu, the juice of 2 limes, about 4 teaspoons of liquid aminos, 8 teaspoons nutritional yeast, 2 teaspoons cumin, 2 teaspoons onion powder, 2 teaspoons garlic powder, 2 teaspoons fresh black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, and whatever olive oil you love to cook with. The first thing you want to do in this recipe is marinate your tofu. Preferably, you want to marinate this for about 15 minutes at the very least to really allow all of the flavors to be absorbed in the tofu, since tofu doesn't have much flavor on its own. But if not, it's totally okay if you just do this and put it straight into your pan. So I'm going to cut my tofu. There's going to be a lot of water, so I'm just going to put it into this recipient here. You're going to squeeze out a little bit while it's still in the package. Great. And we're going to cut the rest of it. And we're going to wrap it around in some paper towels. And try to squeeze even more of the water it came in out of it. It's okay if you don't get all of it out. Great. Now we can move this out of the way. You want to cut them into fillets that are about 1/2 inch thick, which should give you approximately 7 pieces, depending on the block of tofu that you purchased. They don't have to be perfectly cut because we're going to eventually cut them once they're all cooked. There we go. So now we're going to add all of the ingredients to the tofu. I'm simply going to place them on a little tin just so that they all fit well and can marinate evenly. Great. So first I will add some lime juice. And we just want to coat each one of them evenly. Next, we will add the liquid aminos. It ends up being about 1/4 teaspoon on each side. Next, I'm going to add the onion powder. Great. Smoked paprika. A little bit more. Cumin. Here's the garlic powder. The black pepper. And lastly, the nutritional yeast. We're going to be using half of it at this point and the other half a little bit later. And what I like to do is just simply with my fingers, just kind of rub all of the ingredients onto the tofu. Lastly, let's just flip each one of the fillets over. And add more nutritional yeast to each one. While the tofu marinates, let's go ahead and make our masa. We're going to need 2 cups of masa harina, one and a half cups of hot water, and now we're just going to mix. Just be careful that your water's not too hot. We want to get the consistency of our dough to feel like Play-Doh. So depending on the temperature of your kitchen, the water amount might be a little bit different. This one feels a little too sticky to me, so I'm going to add a little bit more of masa harina. A little bit more. starting to feel just right. If you can see, it feels a little sticky, but not too sticky. So that's about the consistency we're looking for. It looks a little sticky, but not too sticky. And we want to let this rest for about 5 minutes or so. Let's make the salsa verde. I'm going to be adding all of the cilantro into the blender, even the stems, because there's actually a lot of flavor on the stems. The onion, all of the tomatillos. And I'm using a small NutriBullet, but you can use any blender or even a food processor, whatever you have. And the lime juice. So this is about the consistency that you're looking for. So now we're getting ready to chop up our onion for our garnish. Here I have about 1/4 of an onion. It's going to just depend on the size of your onion, but about this much is all you need. Most people, when they tell you to chop up an onion, they'll tell you to go horizontally, then vertically, and then down horizontally. But I'm going to show you a quick little trick. This works really well, especially if you're not looking to use an entire onion. So we're going to cut it into a 1/2 moon. And once you have this, you just cut it really thinly, starting at the edges, and you just work your way through the entire piece. And what I love about this technique is that you're going to actually get really beautiful cubes, and they're going to be small, which is perfect for a taco. So let's chop up the rest of it. So one more time. And honestly, I think this is just so much easier than cutting it the other way, and especially if you're not using the entire onion. Perfect little pieces. Last piece. There we go. All done. We're also going to be using cilantro as part of our garnish. And it's going to depend on the cilantro that you get at the store. This one, the stems are a little bit tough, so they're not going to be that great biting into them. So I'm first removing the cilantro from these large stems that are a little bit tough. Go. And honestly, if you wanted to, you could even just use large pieces of cilantro on your tacos. I prefer it to be a little bit chopped. It's a little bit easier to bite into, but It's totally your preference. All right, so now we're just gonna bunch this up, make it into a nice little bundle, make it a little tight, and just chop down. We're gonna try to keep our cut thin, and that way we don't have to continue to chop it up. At the end, it'll be just the right size. Perfect. All done. To cook our tofu, I'm using a 12-inch pan, non-stick. I'm using this size because it will be able to cook all of the tofu at once, but if you have a smaller one, it's okay. You're just going to have to cook it one at a time, or how many you can fit at a time. I'm setting it to medium heat, and I've added about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, just enough to coat the pan. I'm gonna let the oil heat up just a little bit. You can see that the oil's starting to change a little bit. You'll know that it's ready when you start seeing some small ripples across the oil. You're starting to see it a little bit right here. Just waiting a little bit more. We see a couple of bubbles start forming. And now you can really see the ripples there. So we're ready to place our tofu. So carefully, one piece at a time. You want to try to place the tofu away from you so that it doesn't splatter on you. And I like to add any of the cooking juices, any of the marinating juices back into the tofu on top of it. And we will cook it on this side for 8 minutes. As this is cooking, we can make our tortillas. While the tofu's cooking, I'm placing a non-stick pan. This is actually a crepe pan, but you can use a comal or any kind of pan that's extended enough to cook about 3 tortillas. So let's turn it on to medium heat and let that warm up while we make our masa. Traditionally, we use a tortilla press like this one, sometimes even made out of wood, to press the tortillas, but if you don't have this, it's completely okay. You can make them in a different way. What I like to do when I don't have a tortilla press is simply use a Ziploc bag. I've cut it on all sides. I'm gonna finish this one off right here. Go. And we're gonna use a small rolling pin. You can use a large rolling pin, even a bottle of water will work. So with the palms of your hand, you just wanna roll it a little bit and then pat it down just a tiny bit. Put it on your Ziploc bag. Cover it with the other piece and just simply roll. You want to try to get round tortillas, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Now we take off that side. And the thickness is totally up to you, but it should look about like this. Now it's ready to go on the hot skillet. I also want to show you, in case you do have a tortilla press at home, this is how you would use it. So you grab your little ball, and again, you're going to roll it in your palms, press it down just a little bit, open it up, and you also need some type of plastic to line your tortilla press. I just used one from the grocery store. This is what you usually put your produce in. And you're gonna push down lightly. It's just about 3 pounds of pressure. And you can see it makes it super beautifully round. So if you can get your hands on a tortilla press, I highly recommend one. Here it is, beautiful. So the 8 minutes are almost up. We can start to see these little pieces of the nutritional yeast and all of the spices getting really brown, and that's perfect. If you can smell this, you're gonna get a scent that's going to mimic a little bit of maybe beef, and the reason why is because of the amino acids and the nutritional yeast actually have vitamin B12. So you're going to get some of those similar scents, which is what's going to give this tofu a very meaty flavor, even though it's all plant-based. So let's go ahead and flip this just gently. That's perfect. You see a little bit of the browning, especially on the sides. And we're gonna just continue flipping each one. It's a great browning right there. And it's totally fine if it starts breaking up a little bit. Again, we're gonna be chopping this up in the end, so it doesn't have to look perfect. And we'll let that cook for another 8 minutes. To cook the tortilla, you simply place it lightly on your pan. You're going to be flipping it a total of 3 times. The first flip is going to be the fastest one. What we were looking for is for the outside of the tortilla to kind of start curling up a little bit. You can kind of see it's starting to do so right here. Just wait a tad bit more. We're starting to see inners are starting to curl up a little bit. So that's about 10 seconds, and now we can flip it. This is our second flip. This is the flip that's going to take the longest. What we're doing is we're letting it cook on that second side, and we're looking for tiny little bubbles to start forming. So this should take about 1 minute. I typically like to cook about 3 or 4 tortillas at a time, but to make sure that I show you the proper technique, I'm simply using 1. In a little bit, I can show you what it looks like when you're cooking several at a time. We're getting ready to flip our tortilla, and as you can see, we're starting to see a couple of little bubbles start forming. So let's go ahead and flip it over. And at this point, we want to press a little lightly on it. Be careful, it's hot. But if you press, you can start to see that it creates this beautiful puff on the tortilla. And that is exactly what we're looking for. And now you know that your tortilla is ready. And now I want to show you what it looks like to cook several tortillas at a time. So here I have 4. This one's ready to flip, so they're starting to curl up a little bit. And I'm doing this with my hands, but feel free to use a spatula if you prefer. Here we see the curling on this one again, so let's flip that one. This one's just about ready as well. We're starting to see a couple of bubbles forming here. They're tiny, but this one's ready to turn. Again, I want to just press it a little bit so that we can get that puff. This one should be ready now too. That one's ready. And you press it a little bit just to kind of help it, but if you notice, it's doing all of the work on its own. And if for some reason your tortilla decides not to puff, it's totally okay. It's still gonna be delicious. Sometimes it just happens. As you're making your tortillas, I recommend that you wrap them up in a kitchen towel so that they'll stay warm and soft. I have this tortilla warmer, but it's really not necessary. Any kitchen towel will work. Tofu's done. We're going to cut it up so that it's ready for our tacos. You can honestly cut it any way that you prefer, but I like to cut it diagonally. Just like that. So we're at the last step. We're gonna plate our food. So grab a tortilla. I like to put a little bit of the salsa verde on the bottom. Our tofu. A little bit of onion. Some cilantro. And the last step, some lime juice. And this is going to really liven up your taco. Thank you for letting me come into your kitchen to cook with you one of my favorite taco recipes. This is a recipe that I honestly make at home at least once a week, and it's because it's so delicious, it's nutritious, completely plant-based, it's fresh, so I always feel good eating it. I hope that you have enjoyed it.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more recipes. And follow me on social media at AMDV Adriana.